The conference room smelled like expensive cologne and even more expensive leather. I sat at the far end of the mahogany table, my hands folded on a folder I'd carried in myself. The suit I wore was 12 years old, purchased at a Men's Warehouse clearance sale, but I'd kept it pressed and tailored. At 64, I'd learned that real power doesn't announce itself with designer labels. My name is Robert Hayes, and I was about to watch my business partner of 23 years try to force me out of the company we'd built together. What Marcus Sullivan didn't know, sitting there at the head of that table surrounded by lawyers in $3,000 suits, was that I owned 62% of Sullivan Tech Solutions. He thought he owned it all. Why did I let him believe that for over 2 decades? That answer starts in Chicago, 1999. I was 41, newly divorced, and working as a systems analyst for a manufacturing firm. I'd just sold a software patent for $800,000, modest money by today's standards, but I was careful with it. I invested half, lived on the other half while I figured out my next move. That's when I met Marcus at a tech conference. He was 38, brilliant with code, terrible with people. He had this idea for supply chain optimization software that made my pulse quicken. I saw the potential immediately, the kind that could transform entire industries. We got coffee, turned into dinner, turned into 3 months of late nights in his garage, building the prototype. Marcus needed capital. I had it. But I also saw something that worried me. The way he talked about success, about making it big, about showing everyone who doubted him. There was a hunger there that felt dangerous. So I made him an offer. I'd invest $500,000 for what the paperwork said was a 15% stake. But I had my lawyer, Tom Brennan, draft it differently. The real agreement, filed separately with the Secretary of State, gave me 62%. Marcus signed both sets of papers. The difference was, he only read one. Tom tried to talk me out of it, said it was too risky, too complicated, potentially illegal if Marcus challenged it. But I knew Marcus. He was so eager to get started, to prove himself, that he'd sign anything. I wasn't cheating him. I was protecting both of us. The company grew fast. By year 3, we had 40 employees. Year 7, 200. The software became industry standard. Marcus bought a mansion in Lake Forest, started dating models, joined country clubs. I bought a decent 3-bedroom ranch in Naperville. Drove a 7-year-old Subaru. Lived alone with my golden retriever, Max. People at the company assumed I'd gotten a raw deal on the equity split. Marcus never corrected them. I watched him change. The brilliant, awkward coder I'd met became someone who measured people by their watch brands. He started treating employees like commodities, fired people weeks before Christmas to hit quarterly numbers, yelled at assistants for bringing the wrong coffee order. But he never treated me badly. Not at first. I was useful. I still wrote better code than anyone else in the building. I solved problems others couldn't. Marcus would clap me on the shoulder and say, "Robert, what would I do without you?" I almost told him the truth a dozen times, especially after I started dating Jennifer. She was 52, a pediatric nurse I'd met when I volunteered at a children's hospital fundraiser. Smart, kind, with this laugh that made everything feel lighter. We'd been together 3 years when this story really begins. Jennifer knew about the money, not the full extent, but enough. She knew I was careful with finances, that I had investments. What she didn't know was that her boyfriend was worth somewhere around $400 million on paper. I lived modestly because I wanted to. Because I'd seen what money did to Marcus, and I didn't want it doing that to me. She also didn't know that I owned most of Sullivan Tech. I told myself I was protecting her from the stress of it, from the target it might put on us. But honestly, I was protecting myself. If she knew and stayed, I'd never wonder if it was for the money. And if she knew and left because I'd kept the secret, well, I wouldn't have to face that either. The real problem started 18 months ago. We just signed a contract with 3 Fortune 500 companies. Biggest deal in company history. Marcus threw a party at his house. I brought Jennifer. I should have known better. Marcus got drunk. Started showing off the house. 8,000 square feet, wine cellar, indoor pool. He stopped in front of a painting in the main hallway. "Rothko Original," he announced to the group following him. 1.2 million. He looked at me. "Robert, you still living in that little place off Route 59? Jennifer's hand tightened on my arm. "It's comfortable," I said. "Comfortable," Marcus laughed. "That's one word for it." He turned to Jennifer. Has he told you about his equity stake? 15%. Not bad for a few months' work in my garage. Right, Robert? The company wouldn't exist without his investment, Jennifer said quietly. Marcus waved dismissively. Ancient history. The real value came from execution, from vision, from knowing how to work a room, close a deal. He smiled at me. No offense, buddy. You're brilliant with code, but let's be honest about who built this empire. We left early. Jennifer didn't say much on the drive home. When we got to my house, she sat on the couch and looked at me. Is it true? 15%? Legally, it's more complicated. How complicated? I almost told her. Right then, I almost showed her the real incorporation documents that Tom kept in his office safe, but I didn't. I said it was 15%, give or take, depending on how you calculated it. She nodded slowly. And you're okay with that? With him treating you like you were some minor contributor? I know what I contributed. That's enough. It wasn't, though. Not anymore. Marcus got worse. 6 months ago, he hired his nephew, Brandon, fresh out of business school. 25 years old, never written a line of code in his life. Marcus made him vice president of operations. Brandon started modernizing things, which meant firing anyone over 50 to bring down average salary costs, which meant outsourcing customer service to save money. Never mind that quality tanked, which meant pushing for an IPO that would make Marcus a billionaire and destroy the company culture we'd spent 2 decades building. I objected in meetings, quietly, professionally. Marcus started ignoring me. Started scheduling important discussions when he knew I couldn't attend. Started referring to me as the legacy employee in emails. Then came the performance review. Brandon delivered it. Sat across from me in my own office with a folder and a rehearsed speech. Robert, you've been valuable to Sullivan Tech, but the company's evolving. We need people who can scale, who understand modern business practices. Your coding style is outdated. Your objections to necessary changes suggest resistance to growth. I built half the architecture you're still using, I said calmly. Exactly. Legacy systems. We're planning a complete rebuild. Newer, faster, more efficient. He smiled. We're offering you a generous severance package, 6 months' salary. Given your age, it might be time to think about retirement anyway. Marcus approved this? This is from Marcus. I looked at the kid across from me. 25 years old. Probably made $200,000 a year because his uncle owned the company. Or thought he did. Tell Marcus I'd like to speak with him directly. He's busy. But he wanted me to tell you he appreciates everything you've done. This isn't personal. It's business. I drove home. Called Tom. They're trying to force you out? He sounded incredulous. Does Marcus actually not remember the real ownership structure? I don't think he ever knew. I think he saw 15% on the main documents and never looked deeper. Robert, you've let this go on for 23 years. If you reveal it now, there's going to be legal hell. He could argue fraud, deception, breach of fiduciary duty. Can he win? Long pause. No. Everything was legal. Unconventional as hell, but legal. You made the investment. The documents are clear. But it'll be ugly. I'm tired of letting him think he built everything himself. I'm tired of watching him destroy what we made because he thinks it's his toy. What do you want to do? Set up a board meeting. Official one, on record. I want to exercise my voting rights. Jennifer found me in the garage that evening. I was changing Max's water bowl, not really seeing what I was doing. You okay? You've been out here an hour. I looked at her. This woman who'd never cared about money, who'd never asked for anything except honesty and time together, who worked 60-hour weeks at the hospital because she believed in helping people, who drove a 10-year-old Honda and considered dinner at Olive Garden a treat. They tried to fire me today. Her face went hard. What? I told her about Brandon, about the severance offer, about Marcus being too busy to face me himself. After 23 years, after everything you built. She sat down on the workbench. What are you going to do? There's something I need to tell you, about the company, about what I actually own. So I told her. All of it. The real investment, the real ownership structure, the 23 years of letting Marcus believe a lie, the $400 million net worth, the choice I'd made every single day to live simply, to work like an employee, to let someone else take credit. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You didn't trust me enough to tell me. I didn't trust myself enough. I didn't want to wonder if you'd have loved me without knowing. And now? Now I know you love me regardless, and I know I can't keep living this way. I can't watch him destroy the company because I'm too afraid of confrontation. She nodded slowly. What happens when you tell him? I don't know, but I need you to know the truth first. The board meeting was scheduled for Wednesday, 10 days after Brandon's termination speech. Marcus called me Tuesday night. Robert, buddy, I heard there's a board meeting tomorrow. What's that about? I requested it. Why didn't you come to me first? We could have talked through whatever's bothering you, like how you sent your nephew to fire me. Silence. Then, that wasn't firing. That was a generous retirement package. You're 64, Robert. Most guys your age would kill for 6 months' salary to walk away. I don't want to walk away. Look, I get it. You're hurt. But you have to understand, the company's changing. We need fresh blood, new energy. You've done great work, but there's a time for everyone to step aside. I'm not stepping aside. Robert, you own 15%. I appreciate the loyalty, but you don't have the votes to block anything. We'll see. He laughed. Actually laughed. Okay, buddy. Come to your board meeting. We'll hear you out. But the decision's made. It's time. Wednesday morning. I wore the same 12-year-old suit, but I carried a leather portfolio Tom had given me. Inside were the original incorporation documents, 23 years of financial statements, and a letter I'd written to the board. Jennifer dropped me off, kissed me before I got out. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. The conference room was full. Marcus at the head of the table, Brandon beside him. 3 board members Marcus had appointed over the years, all friends from his country club. A lawyer I didn't recognize. And Tom, sitting in the corner with his own briefcase, giving me the smallest nod. Robert. Marcus stood, arms wide like we were old friends. Thanks for coming. I know Brandon's conversation upset you. Let's clear the air. I sat down at the far end, put my portfolio on the table. I want to discuss company direction. Of course, that's what we're here for. Marcus sat back down. But first, I think we should address the elephant in the room. Brandon presented you with a retirement package. You haven't responded. We need an answer. I'm not retiring. Brandon leaned forward. With respect, that's not really your decision. The company's restructuring. Your position is being eliminated. Which position is that? Senior Systems Architect. Interesting. Because I don't remember that title being in my original contract. Marcus frowned. What are you talking about? I opened the portfolio, slid copies of the incorporation documents down the table. Everyone took one. I watched them read, watched confusion spread across faces. What am I looking at? Marcus picked up his copy. This says... Wait, this says you own 62%. That's correct. That's not correct. You own 15%. We agreed to that in 1999. We agreed to 2 things in 1999. What you thought was the equity split, and what was actually filed with the state. Tom can verify the documents are legitimate. Tom spoke from the corner. Everything is legal and properly filed. Robert Hayes has been the majority shareholder of Sullivan Tech Solutions since incorporation. The lawyer Marcus had brought sat up straighter, started flipping through papers rapidly. Marcus's face went from confused to red. This is fraud. This is deception. You lied to me for 23 years. I never lied. I let you assume. There's a difference. Bullshit. You let me build this company thinking I owned it. We built this company. Together. But you started believing you'd done it alone. You started treating people like they were disposable. You started measuring success by how big your house was. Brandon stood up. This is insane. Uncle Marcus, we need to challenge this. There's no way this is legal. Tom cleared his throat. It's completely legal. Unconventional, but legal. Mr. Hayes made a $500,000 investment in 1999. The ownership structure was clearly defined in filed documents. The fact that Mr. Sullivan didn't thoroughly review what he signed doesn't change the legal reality. So what now? Marcus was gripping the edge of the table. You're taking over? Forcing me out? 23 years of partnership and you pull this? No, I'm exercising my voting rights as majority shareholder, starting with Brandon's termination. He's fired, effective immediately. Brandon's jaw dropped. You can't. I can. And I am. Your modernization has cost us 12 senior employees. Customer satisfaction is down 30%. And you're pushing an IPO that would gut the company's culture for short-term profit. Those employees were expensive, dead weight. Those employees were people, with families, with decades of experience. You fired 3 of them during December. One was a week away from her pension vesting. Marcus stood up. Okay, Robert, you've made your point. You have more power than I thought. But you can't run this company alone. You need me. The clients, the relationships, the vision, that's all me. The vision was always shared. You just stopped listening to the other half. Fine. So we compromise. Brandon was aggressive. I see that now. We'll bring back the people we can. Slow down the IPO discussion. But you can't expect to just appear after 23 years of being silent and start making demands. I pulled out the second document. This is my resignation as senior systems architect, effective immediately. What? But I'm appointing myself as CEO, effective the same day. You can't do that. As majority shareholder, I can. You're being moved to president of client relations. Same salary, same benefits. You're good at relationships, Marcus. You always were. Focus on that. Let me handle the internal operations you've been neglecting. The room was dead silent. Marcus sat down slowly. You planned this. All of it. 23 years of planning. No. 23 years of hoping I wouldn't have to. Of hoping you'd remember what we built this for. Of hoping the money wouldn't change you. So this is revenge? For what? For being successful? For enjoying what we built? This is protecting what we built. From being destroyed by someone who forgot that companies are made of people, not just profit margins. One of the board members, Richard Chen, spoke up. Mr. Hayes, what are your plans for the company? Rehire everyone who was terminated in the last 6 months if they want to come back. Restore the customer service department. Cancel the IPO plans for at least 2 years. Implement profit sharing for employees who've been here more than 5 years. And start succession planning that's based on merit, not nepotism. Richard nodded slowly. As a board member, I support this direction. The last 6 months have been troubling, the other board members agreed. They'd been uncomfortable with Marcus's changes but hadn't felt empowered to object. Marcus looked around the table, saw he'd lost. So that's it? 23 years and you just take it all away? I'm not taking anything. You still own 38%. You're still wealthy beyond most people's dreams. You're still president of this company. But you're not going to treat people like disposable assets anymore. And you're not going to destroy what we built because you forgot why we built it. He stood up, walked to the door, stopped. I remember the garage, Robert. I remember the late nights, the belief we had. I remember when it was about building something that mattered. His voice was quieter. I don't know when I forgot that. I know. That's why I waited so long. I kept hoping you'd remember on your own. He left. The meeting ended. I sat there with Tom while everyone filed out. How do you feel? Tom asked. Tired, relieved, guilty. Guilty? For letting it get this far. For not speaking up sooner. You were protecting what you built. Sometimes that requires patience. Jennifer picked me up. We drove in silence for a while. So you're CEO now? For a while. Until I can find someone better suited for it. Will Marcus stay? I don't know. I hope so. He's good at what he does, when he remembers what matters. We got to my house. She turned to me. $400 million. Approximately. And you're still going to live here. Why wouldn't I? It's paid off. It's comfortable. Max likes the yard. She smiled. What about me? Do I get a say? Always. Then I say we keep the house. Maybe renovate the kitchen. Definitely get a new water heater. And we donate more to the hospital. And maybe possibly eventually, you tell me things before you let them sit for 23 years. Deal. Marcus and I met for coffee a week later. Neutral ground. A Starbucks neither of us usually went to. I'm not quitting, he said. That's not me. I know. But I've been an asshole. To you, to the employees, to people who deserved better. Yes. The thing is, I don't know when it happened. I remember being broke, being hungry, being desperate to prove I could build something. And then we did build it. And somewhere in there I started thinking that meant I was better than other people. Money doesn't make you better. It just gives you more choices. You really live in that little house by choice? It's not little. It's right-sized. And yes, he shook his head. I have an 8,000 square foot house I barely use half of. I haven't cooked a meal in my own kitchen in 2 years. I can't remember the last time I actually enjoyed anything I bought. So change it. Just like that? Not just like that, but start. Remember why we did this. It wasn't to see who could accumulate more. It was to build something that solved real problems for real people. He was quiet for a moment. The employees I fired. You're really bringing them back? Everyone who wants to come back. With back pay for the time they were out. That's going to cost millions. We have millions. And they earned it. He nodded. Okay, I'll call them myself. Apologize personally. That would mean something. We finished our coffee. Stood up to leave. Robert, why didn't you tell me? From the beginning. Why the secret? Because I saw how hungry you were. And I was afraid if you knew I had that much control, it would poison what we were building. I wanted you to build it because you believed in it, not because you were working for someone else. And instead you let me build it thinking I'd done it alone. That was my mistake. I thought I was protecting the company. I was protecting my own ego. We both screwed up then. Yeah, we did. Jennifer and I got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. We honeymooned in Montana, hiking and fishing, staying in a cabin with no cell service. It was perfect. When we got back, Marcus had made changes. Smaller office, sold the Lake Forest mansion, moved into a condo downtown, started eating lunch with employees in the cafeteria. Personally reviewed every termination before it was approved. He was trying. The company stabilized. The employees we'd brought back helped rebuild the culture. Customer satisfaction went back up. We postponed the IPO indefinitely. Marcus grumbled about it sometimes, but he understood. I hired a CEO a year later. Woman named Patricia Rodriguez, brilliant operations mind, had built 2 successful tech companies. I moved back to senior architect. Marcus stayed as president. We worked together better than we had in a decade. People still ask me sometimes why I lived the way I did. Why I drove old cars, lived in a modest house, let people think I was just another employee. They don't understand that it wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was about building something that mattered. About treating people with dignity. About remembering that success isn't measured by the size of your house or the price of your watch. It's measured by whether you can look at yourself in the mirror and like who you see. I'm 66 now. Jennifer and I still live in the same house, though we did renovate the kitchen. I still drive a Subaru, though it's a newer one. Max passed away last year. We adopted 2 rescue dogs, Luna and Bear. They like the yard too. Marcus and I have lunch once a month. We talk about the company, about life, about the mistakes we both made. He's better now. Not perfect, none of us are, but better. He's dating a teacher. She doesn't care about his money. He says she reminds him of who he used to be. The company's worth over $1 billion now. My share would let me retire to anywhere in the world, buy anything I wanted, but I go to work 3 days a week, write code, solve problems, and come home to Jennifer and the dogs. We have Sunday dinners with friends. We volunteer at the hospital together. We take walks in the evening. People think I wasted an opportunity, that I should have lived bigger, enjoyed the wealth I created, but they're measuring the wrong things. Real wealth isn't the number in your bank account. It's Sunday morning coffee with someone who loves you regardless. It's the satisfaction of solving a problem that seemed impossible. It's looking at something you built and knowing it makes people's lives better. It's the choice to live according to your values, even when no one's watching. I had 400 million reasons to reveal the truth sooner, but I only needed one to finally do it. Watching what we'd built together being destroyed by someone who'd forgotten why it mattered. And in the end, maybe that was the real lesson, not about business or money or power, but about remembering what you're really building and being willing to protect it, even if it means 23 years of patience followed by one difficult morning in a conference room that smelled like expensive cologne and even more expensive mistakes.